Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Dr. Megan Ford here with you, University of Georgia's Love and Money Center, back with another episode of Author Talk. I am so excited today to welcome our guests, Doug and Heather Boneparth. Doug, you're the president and founder of Bonafide Wealth, and your partner, Heather, is the director of business affairs. So this is like the most fun because I'm such a nerd about couples and money. And that is really where my heart is in terms of like practice and research. And so it is really such a pleasure to have both of you on for this conversation. And we're going to be talking about a special project that you did together, which is right this little baby here,
There it is.
Money Together. So, how to find fairness in your relationship and become an unstoppable financial team. Loving that. And I'm curious if we can kick it off with just a little bit more about what inspired you to write a book and do it together, because it's challenging enough to like singularly as an author write a book, but to do that with a
Don't
partner
we know it?
was
Don't
interesting
we know it?
dynamic.
It sure is. I mean, we wrote Money Together because we felt that couples were having the wrong conversations about money. I think it's very easy to get caught, as you know, at the surface level. People get caught bickering about spending, about budgeting, but we're not having the deeper conversations that explain why we feel the way we feel. How do we know this? Because it was happening to us. And, Doug's been in the industry for almost 20 years, I guess 20 years now.
More than 20.
More than 20 years. And for this to happen to a literal money expert and a longtime corporate lawyer who's never at a loss of the right questions to ask people and what to say, we found that we were having trouble finding the language to explain the power dynamics that were at play in our relationship and how we could solve those problems that were manifesting and showing up not only in our money, but in the way that we treated each other at home.
Yeah. And second to that was, I'm always going to be a financial planner and an operator and practitioner. The second order effect was, well, what are we doing inside of practice? Like, how can this actually help advisors deliver value to their clients as a way to continue to spread the word that, what we were dealing with on a very personal level and would apply to anyone who is interested in having a better relationship with their long-term partner.
Yeah. And I will just say one thing. That was one of the cool things about our decision to write this book, was that we viewed Money Together as something that a couple picks up directly. Like, we want to be speaking to couples directly, but from an industry standpoint, we have an opportunity to widen the lens for so many advisors who are really agents of change for their clients and for society as a whole, to say, how can we create greater couple equity at home, because that leads to greater gender equity out in the world. But financial advisors play a huge piece in that too.
Oh, I love so much of what you're saying about trying to have an impact in multiple places, in the professional space, but also just in the home. This can fit for couples who are really struggling with seeing this in a way that feels productive and dealing with this subject matter in a way that also feels like we can do this, we can get through this. Money conversations are really quite tough, as we know, and they're unique to couples. Money is a topic that I think for couples, it's so unique in terms of its ability to get our hackles up with a partner. I talk about how, when partners meet, get together, they have these two money stories that they're bringing
That's right.
in
There you go.
together. And it just because we're initially attracted to each other, or, we find commonality, that doesn't mean all the stuff around our financial values, expectations, experiences are going to link up really, really well together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the whole, I think, underbelly of the book. And certainly the first section of the entire book is the part of your life that you live before you've ever met your partner. And, Megan, you pointed out so well, like, you have to reconcile all of those things before you even get into the team play and the teamwork that takes place.
I mean, look, even existentially, when we sat down to write the book and we said, how do you capture something that is meant for two people to do work, but so much of the work is self work?
Yeah.
And so we make a point to point out that nuance, that, like, yes, a lot of this is teamwork that you need to work on together. But before you can do that, there's a ton of self-work and self-understanding and sometimes forgiveness, self-forgiveness that
Yeah.
needs to go into your work around money before the two of you can get to the productive, awesome teamwork that we want to be doing together.
And I wanted to add you said this is very difficult work, and you are not wrong in that claim. But I wanted to get a little more specific as to why it's difficult. Yes, the topics or conversations you're going to engage your partner in are often very emotional and very, difficult ones to have. But it's difficult because this is a practice, not just a conversation, not just a body of work, not just a book, where people almost in all aspects of life find difficulty as being consistent and disciplined with something they have to do over and over and over again. So you will not solve your life, your financial relationship life by reading this book, nor will you be in the best shape of your life going to the gym one time. And I think that analogy is a great way to show you the type of work and repetition that needs to go into bettering yourself. And in this case, it's about love and money.
100%. I'm so glad that you pointed that out, Doug. I think we wish sometimes, especially I'll own my dynamic in it. I show up as the money avoider and more of the anxious partner in
Sure.
my dynamic. And so that automatically sometimes puts me in a defensive position for like really no reason. So some of that self-work has been understanding like how I just naturally kind of present in the dynamic. And also it's so important for couples to hear that like there's not a quick fix for this to the
Thank you.
degree that we really want there to be like a one and done.
We
We all wish it.
live in such an
Yeah.
optimizing culture that
Yeah.
once you want, I'm sure our publisher would have loved for us to write 8 steps to becoming a finance. Everyone wants their 8 steps to fix
Yeah.
their entire life. Wake up at 6 in the morning and suddenly you've unlocked the keys to
You're not
success.
cold plunging.
That is not, I'm not cold plunging. I tried once. It was horrific. But I think that, yeah, we all want to find a way to self optimize. We all want to find that quick fix. But the problem is when it comes to money in your relationship, this is just life.
Oh.
And this is about navigating the journey that life throws at you. We don't always get to choose what comes next. I'd argue that we never really get to choose what comes next. And that is why our goal in the book is not to solve all your problems. It's to make you more nimble for when the next change comes, because it always will.
Yeah. That skill of like trying to be a bit more adaptable. The two of you, you're like, yes, yes.
He's like, that was good. I'm like,
Well,
thanks. Great.
usually I then just pile on with words that need not be said. So that's my way of coping with that.
Yeah, I think that adaptability is so key. And a skill that transcends couples and money. And if we can be a little bit more adaptable and future looking and responsive and present, I think that's gonna do us wonders in all kinds of different areas, including our
Absolutely.
relationships and our finances. What else would you say are some key takeaways that you hope for people?
Well, so I guess we've covered the fact that this is self work and couples work, yours, mine, and ours. And that understanding is very important. That self forgiveness is important. We've touched on the fact that this is a practice, that you're not going to just get it right once and be done. I think we were guilty of that. We thought we had it all figured out when
Yeah.
we're 30 years old. I think a lot of people think they have it all figured out until they realize they don't when the next thing comes. But for me personally, I think one of the greatest opportunities in this book to level set and to find greater equity and fairness in your life as a couple is around time and around caregiving. Because I think that when couples step into a season of caregiving, whether that means having children, whether they find themselves in the sandwich generation, but especially when you become parents, I think is when a lot of couples find their power dynamic changing because someone ends up taking on the lion's share of household labor that didn't exist before. And they don't have the words to really explain and maybe redistribute that labor, even if they didn't have it right for a while, but they feel like maybe they've lost themselves. They've lost themselves to caregiving. They've lost themselves to marriage. They've lost themselves to the Bermuda Triangle of their career, as I like to put it, in the years when I had small children. And I didn't know whether what I was feeling was my own fault, whether it was his fault, whether it was my company's fault at the time. And I think that when women in particular start to feel the weight of all these things, it's often the time that women tap out of important conversations. Whether that's saying, well, I'm never going to excel at work because now I'm a mom and I can barely make it to my job. Or they say, I work so hard at all these things and I'm responsible for all these things at home that money feels like the only thing I'm not responsible for. So I'm going to let him handle it because that's the only thing he's interested in handling and I'm going to let him handle it. So many of these dynamics end up just happening to you. So the whole third section of our book is about contributions and about examining what it means to contribute to your family. And our point to be made here is that we contribute in so many other ways than just earning money. We should not be tethering our self-worth to what our income is. We are all providers. You're not only a provider because you earn money. Caregivers are providers too. And it's an incredibly important reframe for everyone because that is how we determine the value of our time.
Yeah.
And when we're reconfiguring things to try and make a life that feels fair and possible for both of us, to make room for each other's time, our dreams, our financial goals, that requires honoring each other's time. And that means not just time spent earning money, but time spent caring, time spent living, time spent being a good friend, community members. I think that's probably the greatest reframe that the book has to offer.
Yeah, I reframe's the right word because I think a lot of the conditioning that society, our parents, and all the conditions that are around us, culture has put upon us is found there, and it's very difficult because it requires you to rewrite that script and then bring those words into action with your partner. I think a lot of discomfort can exist in, and I'm speaking from experience here because we practiced what we preach. You'll learn about how we reshuffled the deck in terms of who does what. I knew from the minute we were going to do that, like I had a very uncomfortable journey ahead of me. But if you just remain a little bit of self-awareness that it's through discomfort and handling that that you come out the other end with growth, with change.
And I think that what's an interesting point, and you will see this thread as you go from section 3 about contributions to section 4,
Power.
which is all about power. And we begin that section with a little bit of tough love, which is we talk about who has power in a relationship. It's not just who has power over the other person. It's, are you empowered in yourself? Are you fulfilling your own self responsibility to know what's going on with your money? We can't just point fingers forever.
Right.
We have to take it upon ourselves to step back into that role. Yes, we need to make space and maybe your partner needs to do more. And we just talked about all of that. But what is your responsibility? Why is it so important that you are an example for your children, that you are in a position to assume financial involvement should something happen to your spouse? All of these reasons why. So I think this idea of being uncomfortable, but it not being unsafe and it not feeling bad is a common thread throughout the book. A lot of this is really uncomfortable in the moment, but you feel really good once you're doing it.
It's a wild juxtaposition to be to get yourself hyped up and motivated to go down a road of discomfort.
Yeah.
Most people don't get jazzed up about that.
Yeah.
But when you think with the end in
Not
mind
our
of what you're
favorite.
trying to accomplish, or how about this? You have to go down that road
Mm.
for the benefit of your relationship and your family.
And this is why we also made it a point that this is not just a book of our stories. I spent 2 years meeting couples, dozens
Right.
and dozens of couples that we spoke with about money. And we weren't talking about their bank accounts.
Yeah.
We were talking about all this other stuff. And so this book is filled with other people's stories and these moments of discomfort and their experiences, either getting through it or getting caught up in it. And I think people want to see a sliver of their own story in someone else. It makes you feel more comfortable in engaging in this, in pulling a story from our book, throwing the book at your partner and saying, this is us. This happened to us. I think that's what people need. And that's why normalizing these conversations is so important.
Absolutely. Despite how common these concerns are for so many couples, it can feel very isolating. Money being the last taboo, that creates an environment in which it can be really difficult to even approach these topics, not only together, but to also find solace in others within our communities, in our networks, and even our close knit relationships, and to remove and to have a tool like this book to remove some of that factor of isolation and to be able to see oneself within the pages really does feel validating and makes you feel very seen. So that is really quite powerful.
Thank you. I think the challenge in this book, the challenge in writing this book is that we wanted to write something that wasn't just for women and it wasn't just for men. It wasn't for one gender. These are lessons that may make you slightly uncomfortable with the way that this is. There are things here that will anger both people. There are things here that will empower either partner in a relationship. And I
Yeah.
guess that's what's really hard because we really want to build the bridge of empathy between partners, between friends, between loved ones. But that requires not creating a world of villains and damsels and writing an angry book that's angry at this establishment, this problem, I mean, we didn't want to do that. We wanted this to be constructive. We want this to be a tool and to create empathy and understanding. There was a couple told us this story about when she found out that she was pregnant in the middle of the night and the husband began to spiral. He lost it. He was peppering her. What are we going to do? How are we going to afford this? And he like took out the laptop in the middle of the night. And like my initial reaction was like, what a jerk. I first thought, I cannot believe one of the couples therapists that we had interviewed. I told her this anecdote and she said, well, I'm going to challenge you to think about it from the other point of view. His wife had said that she was not only not involved in their finances, she did not want to be involved in their finances. And in that moment, he knew that his responsibility had forever changed. She was not earning an income, I don't think at the time. And he knew that the weight of this entire thing was on his shoulders. And he feared she was not going to be a partner in those decisions in that moment. And I hadn't thought about it like that, but I think we try throughout the book to bring as many angles to these issues as we possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that took some work and self-reflection throughout
Yeah.
the process for you all too, because there's nothing that triggers us like other people's money decisions. Like I feel
Oh
like
my God.
it's just like one of those things that really brings out this judgmental part in us. I'm not even sure how to fully wrap my mind around it.
Try doing it as a professional where not only do
Exactly.
you have an opinion, but you have the right opinion.
No, but I just think in general, it's a great exercise in understanding other people more. And I'm so thankful for all the experts that we did interview for this book who really gave us so many unique perspectives, some of which, I had never even thought about. And so that's I think why it's important. It's just important to view it from as many angles as we can.
Do you think your relationship was able to grow stronger as a result of doing this project together?
Well, we're still together, so that's a good part.
That's true.
Absolutely. Again, at the very beginning of this project, for me personally, I mean, there was a lot going on. We write about it in the book, but a little bit about that is, Heather found herself in a position of plateauing in her career, and she had put in many, many years, over a decade, of making sure that we were in a position so that I could grow a wealth management firm and build that. And, we kind of just watched the tables turn completely the other way around. And we were either by hand being forced or it being the right moment. Usually it's a, combination of those two things. What was our next big decision? What would we be doing together? Would it be the thing we always wanted to do, which is work together, really set ourselves free from, the man from the corporate world and the constraints that we have really turned on us as older millennials? We watched that happen from 2008 through COVID. Or was it to go just do the same thing, but on Heather's terms, closer to home, whatever that might be? And we chose to do the thing that we always wanted to do. And it was at that moment when I earlier said, oh my goodness, I'm going to be dealing with a lot of discomfort. I knew at that moment the amount of self work that I needed to do. Heather knew the amount of self work that she would need to do, although I would argue the emphasis was probably more on me to move outside of my comfort zone. Welcome Heather formally into the business. She has always been a part of it. She would say, I've been moonlighting as your co founder, but truthfully, we wouldn't have gotten here without her, not just by holding down a job, but helping me think through everything. Lawyer, you're going to want that. So suffice to say, I had to do a lot of work, a lot of personal work. We brought that work together to make sure that we were thinking clearly and setting the appropriate expectations as to what we wanted. And it was very hard at the beginning. Extremely hard. It's still difficult to do these things, but very, very difficult. But I give us a lot of credit. Writing this book and putting it together was a wonderful complement to what we were actually doing in our own lives to not only validate the things that we're saying in this book. Heather and I always took the approach that it starts with us. We'll take the lead. Before we would ask people to do something, before we would ask you, the reader, to do something, we would put ourselves first and lead by example. And when you ask me, hey, did you improve your relationship? I can tell you by putting this together and living it and doing it. The answer is yes, because now we create space for each other. Now we have ways to check in with each other routinely, whether they be money dates or in the quiet moments that we have. The division of labor is more fair than it's ever been. And Heather's never been more tapped into not just our personal financial life, but we have this other thing, the business that you also, so all the entrepreneurs out there, it's doubled up, your financial life personally and, that gray area of the business kind of folding into that. So yes, without a doubt, we're better off for it. And we haven't killed each other. So that's wonderful too.
It's true. No, it's true. I'll leave it there. You said it all.
Amazing. Well, where can people find more information about you, your work, your lovely book?
We got like 30 websites to rattle off here right now. So let's just get to it.
Well, Money Together is available in all formats. You can listen to it on Audible, but it's also available on Amazon at all your favorite bookstores or through our website, domoneytogether.com. We also write a weekly newsletter for couples and money that is free on Substack. It's called The Joint Account, which you can find at readthejointaccount. We also run a wealth management firm. If you want to talk finances with us and get into the nitty gritty, our firm is Bonafide Wealth. And we also love being on social media, which is kind of like our toxic, it's our toxic trait that we're habitually online. So you can find him at Doug Boneparth and you could find me at Average Joelle almost anywhere.
Fantastic. This has been such a fun conversation. I think I could probably talk with you all for hours on end about couples
We'll do it
and
again.
money. Yeah, we may need a part 2 for author talk. But thank you so much to both of you for the work that you do and for illuminating this particular topic that touches so many lives and to help couples feel a little less lonely around this as well.
Likewise, we thank you for all the work you're doing at the Love and Money Center, and we're just happy to be a part of it and happy to be here today. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.